It happened on a quiet afternoon, the way most digital earthquakes do. The timeline was endless, filled with the usual noise. And then, the post. It wasn't a press release. It wasn't a polished video package. It was something far more potent, cryptic. Just a few words. Maybe an old image. Maybe a date. But the subtext was unmistakable. It was a flare, shot up into the dark, that simply said, "I'm not done." In that instant, the entire landscape of Evolution shifted. What was meant to be a celebration of the current roster suddenly felt incomplete. The tease wasn't just a marketing ploy. It felt personal. It felt raw. It was the sound of someone testing the ice, wondering if it would still hold their weight. The whispers started immediately. Is she cleared? Is this sanctioned by the company? Or is this something far more dangerous? A rogue element. We forget that these performers, these icons, are human. They miss the roar. They miss the lights. They miss the identity. This post wasn't just for the fans. It was for her. It was a test balloon, sent up by someone standing at a profound crossroads, wondering if the path back was even still there. The silence from the corporate side was deafening. It made the tease echo even louder, fill in the void with the one question nobody dared to answer. What if the wrestling world collectively held its breath? The hope is intoxicating, isn't it? For the fans who watched her rise, who saw her forcibly retired, this tease was more than a return. It was validation. They remembered the speech, the hollow sound of the microphone hitting the mat, the sight of a career ending in its prime. It was a shared trauma. We felt her loss as our own. So, when this new signal appeared, it split the fan base into two distinct, deeply emotional camps. First, there were the optimists, the dreamers. They were already fantasy booking. She should challenge the champion. Imagine the music hitting at Evolution. They saw the triumphant final act, the happy ending that this brutal industry so rarely provides. They saw the tears of joy, the roof blowing off the arena. They wanted the miracle. But then, there was the other side. The protective side. The fans who remembered why she left. They remembered the neck surgeries. They remembered the documentaries, the vulnerability, the pain. Their immediate reaction wasn't excitement. It was fear. Is she risking her health? Is this safe? I don't want to see her get hurt again. This clash of hope and fear created a strange, profound tension. It was a community celebrating a potential resurrection while simultaneously bracing for a potential tragedy. It proved that Saraya wasn't just a performer they watched on TV, she was a person they had grown to care about. The debate raged, not with the usual internet toxicity, but with a genuine, complex emotional weight. Now, imagine the scene backstage. Evolution is supposed to be the focus. It is the pinnacle, a night dedicated to the women who are currently carrying the banner. And then, one social media post from an outsider. A ghost changes the entire narrative. The energy shifts. For the women who have been grinding on the road 300 days a year, this news is complicated. On one hand, Saraya is a pioneer. She is a friend, a mentor, a sister. Many of them are in that locker room because of her. They would love to see her healthy, happy, and whole. But, on the other hand, this is their show. A potential return of this magnitude doesn't just add to the card, it becomes the card. It pulls all the oxygen out of the room. It takes a spot. You can picture the quiet, tense conversations. The supportive texts sent directly to Saraya, immediately followed by anxious glances exchanged in the catering hall. Who gets bumped? Whose championship match, the biggest of their career, suddenly becomes the co-main event? There's a subtle resentment, not for Saraya herself, but for the machine. The machine that might, in an instant, place a returning legend above the workhorses who built the very event. This isn't simple jealousy. It's professional anxiety. It's the unspoken hierarchy of wrestling reasserting itself. The champions, the contenders, they all just felt the gravity of the show shift under their feet. Evolution was no longer just about them. In the corporate towers, the reaction wasn't emotional. It was logistical. It was a scramble. The first question asked in that sterile, glass-walled boardroom wasn't, "Is she happy?" It was, "Did we authorize this?" If the answer was yes, it was a masterstroke of viral marketing, perfectly timed. But if the answer was no, it was a 5-alarm fire. It was a rogue element, a promise made to millions of fans that the company might not be able to keep. Think of the pressure this puts on the creative team. Evolution was likely already planned. Every match, every video package, every minute timed to perfection. This single tease is a grenade thrown directly into that script. Now, they have to address it. If they ignore it, they look foolish, disconnected from the very audience they're trying to captivate. If they embrace it, they have to deliver. But can they? Is she medically cleared? Is there even a plan? You can almost hear the frantic phone calls. Legal, medical, talent relations, all checking in, all trying to get an answer. The master tease is a beautiful idea, but the reality is often just pure chaos. This one post may have forced the company's hand. They were now in a reactive state, chasing a narrative that Saraya herself had just created. The power dynamic, for a moment, had shifted. It was no longer the company telling the story. It was the story demanding the company catch up. To understand the tease, you have to understand the retirement. It wasn't a choice. It was a verdict. When she stepped away, she wasn't just leaving a job. She was leaving Paige behind. Paige was the pale warrior, the anti-diva, the one who broke the mold. She was the youngest champion. She was the revolution before the real revolution. That identity was forged in sacrifice and pain, and it was ripped away from her at its absolute peak. For years, she had to watch from the sidelines. She was a general manager, a panelist, a manager, always adjacent to the ring, but never in it. Imagine the psychological toll, watching the women's division, her division, reach heights she could only dream of. Evolution itself, the very event she was teasing, was a monument built on the foundation she laid. So, this tease. It's not just Saraya wanting to wrestle again. It's Saraya confronting the ghost of Paige. It's a desire to reclaim the narrative, to end the story on her own terms, not on a doctor's report. The pressure of that legacy is immense. Can she be who she was? Does she even want to be? The fans want Paige, but Saraya is the one who has to live with the consequences. This tease is the sound of a person standing in front of a mirror, looking at that ghost and asking, "Do I have one more fight left in me?" This story doesn't just belong to Saraya. It belongs to the Knights. A family synonymous with British wrestling, a dynasty built on grit, canvas, and hard knocks. Her career wasn't just a personal success. It was the family's validation on the world stage. They were the subjects of a Hollywood movie because of her journey. When she was forced to retire, it wasn't just a daughter's career ending. It was a chapter of the family legacy slamming shut. So, when that tease hit the internet, the shockwave was felt just as hard, if not harder, in their home. You can imagine the phone call to her parents, the mix of abject terror and cautious excitement. Her mother, sweet Saraya, a wrestler herself, understanding the physical danger better than any fan ever could. Her father, Ricky Knight, understanding the addictive, all-consuming pull of the crowd. They know the price. They have paid the price over and over. This tease puts an unspoken burden on them. They have to be the supportive family, smiling for the cameras. While privately grappling with the terrifying what-ifs, they have to relive the anxiety of every single bump, every fall, every match. This isn't just a comeback. It's risking the family's most celebrated member. Their proof to the world. The tease wasn't a solo act. It was an announcement that dragged an entire family and their complicated, heavy legacy back into the harsh glare of the international spotlight. The moment the tease went public, the journalistic ecosystem of wrestling went into a feeding frenzy. This is the white whale of comeback stories. Every insider, every reporter, every podcaster scrambled for a source. The initial whispers were contradictory and chaotic. A source says she's 100% cleared. 10 minutes later, a new source claims WWE Medical has not seen her. This is a rogue post. This is the fog of war in the information age. Fans, desperate for answers, clicked on everything. They were trapped in a spin cycle of conflicting reports, their hopes rising and falling with every new headline. The insiders knew the value of this story. Getting it right meant cementing their reputation. Getting it wrong meant losing credibility. But the pressure to be first was overwhelming. This chaos benefits the machine. It generates clicks, views, and subscriptions. The truth becomes secondary to the conversation. Soraya's potential health risk was suddenly a commodity, a story to be traded and speculated upon. You can picture the reporters, phones pressed to their ears, trying to parse truth from fiction. Is this a work? Is this a shoot? Is it a work shoot? The lines blurred completely, and the actual human being at the center of it, Soraya, was lost in the storm of her own creation. The story was no longer hers. It belonged to the rumor mill. And just like that, she was the center of the universe again. But this time, it was different. Before, she was Paige, the wrestler. Now, she was Soraya. The comeback story. Every public appearance, every Instagram story, every charity event. It was all viewed through the singular lens of this one question. Is she returning? The pressure is suffocating. If she posts a video from a gym, the internet explodes. She's training! It's happening! If she posts a picture relaxing on a couch, it's the deal must be off. She's given up. She lost the privilege of just being. The tease, intended perhaps as a moment of empowerment, became a cage. The media requests flooded in. Everyone wanted the exclusive. Everyone wanted the real story. But the real story was likely something she hadn't even figured out for herself yet. This is the unseen cost of viral fame. You send a signal out, but you cannot control how it's received or how it bounces back and engulfs you. She was now performing 24/7, not in a ring, but on the public stage of expectation. And with evolution looming, that spotlight was only getting hotter, more intense, and more unforgiving. Every move was scrutinized, every word analyzed, as she navigated the very, very public tightrope she had just created for herself. She was trapped by the very hope she had inspired. Forget the fans! Forget the office, the family, and the media. Let's talk about the room. The doctor's office. The cold sterility of it. The hum of the fluorescent lights. This is where the real comeback happens, or where it dies. A tease is just words. A return is a medical clearance. We see the triumph. We don't see the terror of the MRI tube. We don't see the agonizing rehab. The physical therapy sessions designed to test a neck that holds her entire life in its hands. We don't see the quiet, terrifying conversations with surgeons who speak in cold, hard probabilities. The fusion is strong, but ... double quotes, there is always a but. This is the private war. While the world speculates about evolution, Soraya is fighting a battle against her own body and her own fear. The doubt must be overwhelming. What if I'm not the same? What if I am the same? And that's the problem. What if I step in that ring and one wrong move sends me back to that dark place? Or worse. The physical preparation is brutal, but the mental preparation is the real mountain to climb. She has to relearn how to trust her own body, a body that betrayed her so profoundly. The tease was the public declaration. The work. The real work is done in silence, far away from the lights, in quiet gyms and hushed medical corridors. The show is days away. Evolution. The speculation is at a fever pitch. Every analyst, every fan has her pegged for a surprise appearance. The surprise entrant in a battle royal or a run-in to challenge a champion. The building is electric, holding its collective breath, waiting for a music cue. That never comes. The show ends. It's a massive success. A celebration of the current roster. But no, Saraya. The internet erupts in a different kind of fire. Confusion. Anger. She lied. It was all a work. She used us for attention. But what if the tease was never about evolution? What if we all missed the point? Days later, a different announcement appears. Saraya is launching a foundation for wrestlers dealing with career-ending injuries. She's partnering with mental health charities. She's becoming a producer, a voice for the voiceless. The T. It wasn't about her returning to the ring. It was about her returning to the industry, but on her own terms. It was a signal to the companies, to the fans, and to herself that she was ready to be part of the world again, but not as Paige. She was taking control of her own legacy. The comeback wasn't about one more match. It was about finding a new way to live. We were all watching the wrong story. We were watching for the return, but she was showing us the resurrection.